We recently covered every anomaly in Gravity Falls, and it was such a fun look back at a series that I really loved. Not only that, but it gave me a reason to go back and read the Book of Bill and Journal 3, which I hadn't done before. But it left me wondering, now that the series has been done for nearly a decade, and we have all the supplemental material, are there any questions that are still left unanswered? So today we will be covering every mystery left, shack-shaped or otherwise. And we might as well start with the biggest and most important question of all. Is it a rock that looks like a face or a face that looks like a rock? These are the mysteries that keep me up at night. Honestly, I could talk about this for hours, but oh, what's that behind it? An axolotl? Fine, I guess we can talk about the hidden god of the universe for now rather than this rock, but we will be getting back to it, and maybe even those rocks over there that look like a like and a subscribe button. Ahem. Despite the axolotl kicking off this list, they are actually pretty much the last thing that we hear about in the series. When Bill is finally defeated, he begins chanting, "Axolotl, my time has come to burn. I invoke the ancient power that I may return." But in classic Gravity Falls fashion, this is of course said backwards. So unless you went back to reverse it or spent 10 minutes online on really any page that mentioned Gravity Falls, you could watch the entire series and never hear about this thing at all, despite it being so powerful that Bill feels the need to beg it for his life. But that's all we had until Journal 3, where the axolotl is mentioned a few more times. For example, Bill comments on how the big frilly know-it-all won't be able to stop him, and later says, "Curse the axolotl, every conspiracy is true." More importantly though, they come up again as we learn more about Ford's journey through the multiverse. There are several groups of people who worship the big frilly guy, and even the refugees that Ford is trapped with alongside in the Nightmare Realm say things like, "Praise the axolotl." Ford soon finds himself in Dimension 52, where he comes across a seven-eyed woman who may or may not have been one of Bill's henchmaniacs in the past. This is the Oracle Jezebel, the Unswerving. She's actually the one who put the metal plate in Ford's head to help him fight against Bill, but more importantly, she also has the ability to see the future and create prophecies, which might be tied to what Ford draws behind her in the journal. We can see her with tapestries that have the axolotl on them, possibly showing a link between the mysterious god of the universe and the woman who can read fate. The third journal also has Ford explaining that he believes the axolotl is some kind of reflection of Bill. If the triangle represents chaos and destruction, then the pink boy might be hope and order. The axolotl also appears in Dipper and Mabel and the Curse of the Time Pirate's Treasure, a choose-your-own-adventure book which notably isn't canon. However, Alex Hirsch does mention that despite having dozens of potential paths, there is a singular massive secret hidden inside which is canon. In the book, you can travel in the time and space between time and space, where you could follow a cipher and go online to find the axolotl who gives the twins a poem about who and what Bill really is. This reads, 60 degrees that come in threes, watches from within birch trees, saw his own dimension burn, misses home and can't return, says he's happy, he's a liar, blame the arson for the fire. If he wants to shirk the blame, he'll have to invoke my name. One way to absolve his crime, a different form, a different time. All of that basically implying that Bill was asking for the axolotl to give him redemption before he died so that he could have another chance at life. Naturally, we also learn about the axolotl in the Book of Bill. After being shattered, he returns to the axolotl and we get yet another poem. On the day Bill Cipher died, he used the trick he'd never tried. Shattered, broken, not yet dead, Cipher left the con man's head. A desperate plea, some panicked prayers, to meet the frilly guy upstairs. In a tank outside of space, the opposites met face to face. Just one shot to live again, he pled his case to his old friend. Look from one god to another, who cares I tried to kill those brothers? They're all ants, it's all a game. Let's press restart and try again. I'm too cool and fun to die, just give this angle one more try. The axe sighed in a knowing way, he expected this was what Bill'd say. Cannot regrow through denial, you'll have to face my hardest trial. See my program to the end, then you may yet live again. Am I fighting demons, eating ghosts? You're getting what you need the most. One way to absolve your crimes, to change your form will take some time. Bill could not believe his luck, this salamander was a schmuck. Easier than he ever thought it, he faked remorse, the guppy bought it. In combat, Bill was undefeated, whatever challenge, he could beat it. Bill shook the axe's hand with glee. How bad could these trials be? Bill believed this meant the axolotl would test him with some trial by combat, but in reality, they were sending him to the Theraprism, a dimension where he could go to atone until he was ready to be resurrected. But that's all we really know about this guy at this point. He's some all-powerful space deity with the ability to reincarnate and revive others. He's seemingly infinitely stronger than Bill, and he may be linked to the idea of fate and destiny. This leaves so many questions. Where did they come from? Why are they so powerful? And how do they connect to the rest of the story? But more importantly, it makes me wonder if there are any other extra-dimensional beings out there. Bill was always presented as this all-powerful chaos demon, even stronger than the Henchmaniacs or the Time Baby. But the idea of something so much more powerful makes me wonder if there are other beings on Bill's level or possibly on the Axolotls as well. Now, let's stick to the vaguely Bill-related things as we look at the zodiac. Ford mentions how he found a cave with 10 symbols on it which formed a zodiac. These being icons that the native people of Gravity Falls prophesied would be able to stop Bill by reversing his weirdness. These symbols include a question mark, a bag of ice, a clam-shaped thing that is the icon on Stan's hat, a pentagram, a hand with 6 fingers, a pine tree, a llama, a shooting star, a heart with a stitch on it, and a pair of glasses, each of which could be associated with specific cast members either in a physical or metaphorical way. The obvious question being, how did these ancient people know about modern things in these depictions, like glasses, English words like ice, or a question mark, as these shouldn't have been things that they would have known about thousands of years ago. Similarly, when Fiddleford comes out of the Nightmare Realm, he also has a prophecy. When gravity falls and Earth becomes sky, fear the beast with just one eye. As well, Bill mentions the prophecy of Weirdmageddon being a billion years old. The source of all of these prophecies is very much in the air. However, my best personal guess goes back to the Oracle that Ford met with. She was likely a henchmaniac, possibly a billion years ago, where she could have made that prophecy. It might have led to the division between her and Bill. We know she's connected to the Axolotl, who speaks in rhymes and riddles, so I don't think it's a crazy assumption that she could have been the one to reach out to the ancient people of Gravity Falls to offer a way of defending themselves from Bill. This might have upset the Triangle, which led the Oracle to go into hiding, which is why she lives alone in Dimension 52. Then, when Fiddleford breached the Nightmare Realm, she had another chance to warn Earth about Bill. That's all entirely headcanon, of course, but it's fairly possible in my opinion. For now though, we just won't know. Now, we've talked about ancient gods and demon-ending prophecies, but the single most important unanswered question in Gravity Falls is this. Why? Why are there so many weird and unexplained events and creatures in this small town? All we really have to go off of is that 30 million years ago, an alien spaceship crashed into the area. However, it is unclear if the ship was attracted to the region due to it being a natural magnet for weirdness, or if the ship brought the weirdness along with it. It's a bit of a chicken and the egg situation. Even if the ship isn't the cause of the weirdness though, it absolutely has left an impact, as it will sometimes make animals sick or interfere with electrical devices from underground. But there is an anomaly that actually came with the aliens, and that is the shapeshifter. A note on the UFO's walls explains that specimen has escaped his changing forms. Over the years, that shapeshifter seems to have reproduced, and eventually Ford finds an egg which hatches into it, and he brings it back into his lab to study it with Fiddleford. That leaves the question, is there just one shapeshifter? Are the originals dead? Are there other eggs out there still waiting to be hatched? And speaking of the shapeshifter, when they're defeated by the Pines twins, the monster gives Dipper a prophecy of how he will die, screaming in pain and posing in a very particular way, which we see exactly happen when Dipper is seemingly killed by the ghost at the Northwest Mansion. Now obviously, turning into Dipper and showing him how he will die is a crazy intimidation tactic. However, the accuracy of this threat is insane. So how did the shapeshifter know what would happen to Dipper? And speaking of Dipper, what happened to Dipper 3 and 4? When Dipper makes a small army of clones with the copy machine, most of them end up being destroyed when they come into contact with liquids. However, Dippers 3 and 4, named Tracy and Quattro, steal Robbie's bike and don't return to be destroyed. Though at the credits of Weirdmageddon 3, we get a quick clip of them camping in the forest, reading and playing a banjo together. But aside from that, we don't know anything about where they are now or if they've managed to stay away from water since then. And we might as well continue along with the Pines family here. In A Tale of Two Stans, we get a bit of a weird case. Stan and Stan were fighting one day, and the commotion causes their parents to come see what's happening. However, when their mom comes out, she is holding a baby. Most people believe that this is Shermie, the Stans' little brother and Dipper and Mabel's grandfather. However, that would mean that Sherman was only about 30 by the time that he was a grandfather. Technically possible, but only in creepy ways. Alex Hirsch later commented on this, saying that the baby was intended to be Shermie, but he eventually realized that it would cause an issue with the timeline. He was hoping to come up with a useful solution to fix this issue and explain the baby, but he just never ended up getting around to it. So this is either just taking that face value as an error, or we can include it into the canon of the show as an unsolved mystery. That is up to you. Back to Stanford though, and he is often described as being strange for having 6 fingers on his hands, and yeah, that is pretty notable. But fingers in general are super strange in this series, to the point that it shouldn't be weird for anyone to have one more or less. Characters like Dipper, Mabel, and Wendy all have 4 fingers, while Stan, Gideon, and Seuss have 5. It is seemingly pretty random as to who has 4 and who gets 5 throughout the entire series, and this extends to the anomalies and the monsters as well. Obviously, we can just chalk it up to making animation easier or cleaner, or it might look better on some characters, which is something that we see all over cartoons. However, I just think it's a bit funny when the idea of someone having an extra finger is so significant to the series. Alright, that one doesn't really count, it's just for fun and just for me. But let's talk about one of my favorite unsolved mysteries, Kirksicle, the Unperceivable. In the journal section on ghosts, we have categories that define the several types of ghosts in the series. Category 7 is the Eternal Key, and Category 8 is the Petrifying Rock, which is a lock. If the Eternal Key ever unlocks the Petrifying Rock, a being called Kirksicle the Unperceivable will be released, and we have no idea what this means. And even if we couldn't perceive Kirksicle, I'd still like to know more about it. It sounds pretty cool. Of course, those aren't the only examples of the anomalies that we don't understand yet. Many of the creatures we do get to have full fleshed out explanations for, or at least get to know in detail throughout the series, but the ones in the shorts, for example, are particularly weird and not really expanded on. The naked candy thief monster, the all-knowing mailbox, the island head beast, and the hide behind, for example, all super weird and we don't know much about them. The all-left robot and his little green men are also on this list, but they do get brought up in the 3rd journal. However, it is worth pointing out that Tad Strange seems to act in a way very similar to these guys as well, so maybe he is a tad more strange than you would think. But that is every unanswered mystery that I could think of. Let me know if I missed any, or if you have any theories that might explain the answers behind any of these. If you enjoyed, remember to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this in the future, and if you haven't seen our video discussing every anomaly, be sure to check that one out after this one. With all that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Oh, wait, the rock that looks like a face. I almost forgot. So it all started when